Hey folks, how you all doing? So today is all about Jack White on my channel. I'm going to attempt to rank, well I'm not going to attempt to rank, I will rank all 17 studio albums by Jack White. That includes the White Stripes, the Saboteurs slash Raconteurs, Dead Weather and Jack's solo albums in some sort of order from my favourite to, or least favourite to favourite. Yeah, I did notice through listening to all these albums again that there are three distinct styles with Jack White. With the White Stripes, you have that real heavy bass drum, which comes to the fore thanks to Jack's then wife, Meg. Simple yet effective drumming from Meg, which is often as tuneful, for want of a better phrase, riff laden as Jack's own guitar work. They blend and play off each other really, really well. It's something he doesn't have on the rest of his solo career and the Raconteurs, Saboteurs, Dead Weather albums. It seems to be a thing he had with Meg White, with the White Stripes, which gives them their sound. Then you have the Raconteurs slash Saboteurs, which I will get into shortly, and Dead Weather. They have lovely harmonies, lovely melodies, with their 6 albums between them. And then you get Jack's solo stuff, which is more classic rock laden. I guess there's a lot of blues rock, a lot of 70s rock sounds like Led Zeppelin type riffs and things like that. And then you got the country and the folk, a bit of psychedelia as well. So there's 3 distinct styles with Jack White. I also noticed during making this that the only vinyl albums I actually have are Jack White's 5 solo albums. I don't have White Stripes on vinyl or Dead Weather slash Raconteurs, Saboteurs, only Jack White, which I thought was really strange until we get into it a bit later, and then it all makes perfect sense why. Anyway, let's quickly go through these 17 albums. Oh, by the way, I did get this idea from Ian at Ranking the Obscure, because he started doing a Jack White rankings set of videos. He did the White Stripes, he did Dead Weather, Saboteurs, and of course Jack solo. So with 3 or 4 different videos there, I've decided to combine them all in one, just because I can, basically, and it's my channel, so I'll do what I want. Anyway, let's quickly go through it. Number 17 on my list, have Dead Weather, Sea of Cowards. This was released in 2010, was Dead Weather's 2nd album. You'll find the word strange or quirky crops up a lot throughout this ranking as we go through these albums, because Jack White is a very strange guy. There's little quirks in his music, even in some of his lyrics, and at times he looks quite strange and quirky in real life as well, with the way he dresses and just the way he looks, etc, etc. That's just him, I guess. This album is a good album. There's nothing that is outstanding on it at all. It's just a steady album. It's not a bad album by any means. It just doesn't seem to elevate itself out of one level for me. Best songs on here for me: Blue Blood Blues, Looking at the Invisible Man. Probably the difference between us, this album comes in at 7 out of 10, which is a pretty good effort for the lowest ranking album in an artist's career, in my opinion, especially when they've done 17 to 20 albums, etc. Number 16 on my list, we go to 2001, the White Stripes, White Blood Cells. This was their 3rd album. Some alt rock on here, some acoustic, catchy pop, lots of simple drumming from Meg, as previously mentioned. There's even a drum solo track on here, which shows you the confidence she has in her own abilities as a drummer. There's an incredible sound on this album, and you think that this was created by 2 people, a guitarist and a drummer. It's absolutely really good from that perspective. But overall, this album doesn't lift again. It's like that Dead Weather album I just mentioned. It seems to sit on one level, and there's no ebbs or flows or highs or lows. It's just a constant album. There's nothing brilliant on this album. There's nothing bad on it. It's just a steady album. Again, best tracks on here: Dirty Leaves on the Dead Leaves on the Dirty Ground. I'm finding it harder to be a gentleman, and probably the final track, The Protector, and I Think I Smell a Rat. The thing I noticed for these albums, this one comes at number 7 by the way, 7 out of 10. Jack White's opening tracks on all of his albums seem to have a oomph about them. They draw you in initially, which is good track listing, when you can get an album that just draws you in from the get-go. So just another thing I noticed when I was listening to all these albums. Number 15, we have the Dead Weather from 2015 with their Dodge and Burn album. This was their third and latest album so far. There's distinct hollowness on the sound of the drums on this, very 80s sounding. If you get the whole thing about 80s sounding music, pop music, there's that distinct hollowness from the synths and the synth drums and the drums, and this has that sound, so it sounds quite weird at times. I would say he's done that deliberately, because Jack White never does anything by accident. He is a very calculating artist and knows exactly what he's doing. There's some killer riffs on here, but again, the album just doesn't lift. It stays pretty much at one level the whole way through. It's consistent. The two previous albums are consistent as well. There's just none of that exceptional tracks on these first 3 albums, whereas there is on albums that come later. But yeah, it's just a good album. It's a straightforward album. It's good. 7 out of 10. At number 14 on my list, we have the Raconteurs from 2006 with their debut album Broken Boy Soldiers. As you can see, it's not Raconteurs on mine, it is Saboteurs. This was their debut album. This is because they were known as the Saboteurs here in Australia. There was a band known on the east coast of Australia that were really well known called the Raconteurs. Jack White asked them to change their name so he could keep the Raconteurs. They said no. He offered them a financial incentive to change their name, which they refused. Therefore, Jack White had to change the name of the Raconteurs in Australia to the Saboteurs. So yeah, it's just the way it is. There's lots of raunchy guitars and riffs on this, all with that quirkiness you find from a Jack White album. Bluesy riffs, jazzy vibes, also some great tempo changes on individual tracks too. Again, nothing bad on here, and plenty to like. You can really start to sink your teeth into this album and all the rest that come forward, because there's lots of different things on it. Favourite track, Steady As She Goes, the opening track, and the title track, Broken Boy Soldiers. Blue Veins, the last track, that's another really, really good track. 7.5 out of 10 for me. Number 13 on my list, we go to the White Stripes again, Get Behind Me Satan. That's from 2005, it's their 5th album. Almost garage rock at times, alt rock sounds as well. Jack's got a lot of quirky vocals on here. He tends to do that on White Stripes albums. Unorthodox drumming timings, apparently. I've heard a lot of people mention that. I'm not a drummer, I don't know anything about drumming, but it seems a bit unorthodox at times. And Meg's drumming actually makes the White Stripes sound. She is the one I'm listening to when I listen to White Stripes albums. Best tracks, Blue Orchid, again, the opening track, that always seems to be the ones that stand out for me. I'm Lonely, But I Ain't That Lonely Yet, the closing track, another closing track. They always seem to have good closing and opening tracks. Probably White Room as well, White Moon, sorry. But yeah, just a very, very good album. 7.5 out of 10. At number 12 on my list, we go to Distill. Second White Stripes album. This was released in 2000. Meg's drumming on this is absolutely sensational. Jack's guitar riffs, they rock. and constant change in musical styles. And that happens during songs as well, not just individual songs. He can go from a blues riff to a bit jazzy sounding to rock sounding, all in the blink of an eye. Basically, very chaotic, very quirky. It does lead to a disjointed album at times, so I really do have to be in the mood for this album. But when I am in the mood, this is a really, really good album. 7.5 out of 10. Oh, sorry, best tracks. Again, the opening track. You're pretty good looking for a girl. The closing track. Your Sudden Can Is Mine, and probably Death Letter and Sister Do You Know My Name. Very, very good songs. 7.5 out of 10. Number 11 on my list, we go to the debut album by the White Stripes, called The White Stripes, 1999. I know I keep saying this, but it's Meg's drumming. It just makes the White Stripes sound. You either love the White Stripes or you don't. I really, really like them. Sometimes I'm not in the mood to listen to them, but when I am, really, really good. 7.5 out of 10. Again, the opening track, Jimmy the Exploder, absolutely brilliant. Sugar Never Tasted So Good, Susie Lee, Broken Bricks, One More Cup of Coffee. Excellent, excellent stuff by the White Stripes. At number 10 on my list, we go back to the Dead Weather, their debut album, Whorehound, released in 2009. Excellent album. This is where I love all these albums coming in from here. Excellent album. Bit of punk rockish at times. Some gritty, hard-edged riffs that you would expect from, like, the gritty, harder-edged blues rock albums of the 1970s, a la Led Zeppelin. Love the vocals from the female singer on here. I can't remember her name, but that just breaks it up from constant Jack White, Jack White, Jack White. It's really, really good. Solid rock, heavy bass, good psychedelic tones and vibes in places. Excellent, excellent album. 8 out of 10. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 60 Feet Tall. Again, the opening track, absolutely brilliant. I Cut Like a Buffalo, Rockin' Horse, absolutely brilliant, brilliant songs. Good driving music album. At number 9 on my list, the first of the Jack White solo albums, so you can see that the top 10 is going to be laden with Jack White. There you are. Borden House Reach, this is his third studio album. This was released in 2018. It's jazzy, it's funky, there's psychedelia, there's rock, there's country, there's alt rock. There's even a rap track, a spoken word piece, and an instrumental on here. This album has everything. It sounds disjointed and chaotic from, when I've mentioned all these different styles and that and what's on it. But it is a solid, cohesive collection, and it just works on every level for me. Excellent, excellent album. 8 out of 10. Great songs on here. Again, the opening track, Connected by Love, absolutely brilliant. Esmeralda steals the show over and over and over. Great, great album. Brilliant stuff, Jack White. At number 8 on my list, we'll go to Jack White again. You are Blunderbuss. This was his debut album, solo album. This was released in 2012. It's jazzy, it's rock, it's country, it's prog rock, it's psychedelic, it's gritty, it's urgent, it's punky, and yet it's very mellow all at the same time. It's everything Jack White does really well. Love the electric piano on this album. That's the standout on this album for me. It's throughout most of the songs an electric piano. It's just got a different vibe to every other album from his career. Again, the great song again is the opening track, Missing Pieces. Hypocritical Kiss, brilliant. The title track, brilliant. Weep Themselves to Sleep, Take Me With You When You Go, which is the closing track. Again, opening tracks, closing tracks. His albums are bookended, absolutely brilliant, and that's throughout his career. 8 out of 10. At number 7 on my list, we have the Raconteurs / Saboteurs again. Help a Stranger. This was their third and latest album. This was released in 2019. More rock, acoustic, with more rock with acoustic or and / electric guitars. There's some bluesy rock tunes on here. Again, hints of jazz as well. That seems to be a thing with his later albums after the White Stripes finished. Hints of jazz and blues creeping in throughout different songs. Again, some brilliant, cool guitar riffs and harmonica on here. He has a knack of getting these simple guitar riffs, and they're just really edgy and really catchy. This is just really, really good. There's a Donovan cover on here. Can't for the life of me think of what it is. It's pretty good. I'm not keen of the Donovan original that I've heard. I just can't remember what song it is. Again, the best tracks on here are Bored and Raised, the opening track. The closing track, Thoughts and Prayers, great stuff. Shine a Light on Me, Now That You're Gone, Live a Lie, great stuff. Terrible album cover though. He usually makes good album covers, but on this album, this is just a horrible. I don't get it. I just don't. I get the Help a Stranger. You know, there's a hand being held out. It's green, which means go, come and get it, basically. 8 out of 10. Number 6 for me with my Jack White albums, we have Icky Thump. 2007. This was the 6th and final White Stripes album. Solid rock, alt rock, Celtic folk, for want of a better word, Celtic folk. Definitely folk anyway. Acoustic, lots of mandolins on this album. There's pipes as well, as in woodwind pipes. Again, Meg's bass drum gives the album that fullness that otherwise might sound slightly hollow or echoey, I guess, for want of a better phrase. But yeah, her drums really fill out the album. Again, brilliant stuff. Title track opens the album, brilliant stuff. Effect and Cause, the closing track, brilliant. Rag and Bone, St Andrew, This Battle Is in the Air. It's a very quirky song. It's only a minute 49, but I really love it. 8 out of 10 for me. Number 5, we have Consolers of the Lonely by the Raconteurs. As you can see, I have the Australian one, which has Saboteurs on the title. The band Saboteurs. 2008, this was their second album. As usual, and I say it again, you know, his albums always hit you with that 1-2 punch of excellent opening tracks. There's horns, there's piano, there's rock. Probably some of his greatest guitar riffs ever are on this album. It's just full of great guitar-driven rock. The title track is the opening track, brilliant. Yeah, nothing else really hits me in the face when I'm looking at this, but it is an excellent album. 8.5 out of 10. At number 4 on my list, we go to Jack White again. From 2022, he released two albums in 2022. The other one's coming up shortly. This is his 4th solo album. Plenty of distortion and feedback on this one. On this album, he seems to be paying homage to the hard rock bands of the early to mid 1970s. There's a bit of glam rock on here, but there's a lot of guitar feedback and distortion. It's a heavy album. It wouldn't sound too far amiss next to the first 3 or 4 Sabbath albums, for example, or next to some of Led Zeppelin's albums. But it is just a straightforward rock album, which is unusual for Jack White. Excellent album. Taking Me Back, brilliant. Fear of the Dawn, absolutely incredible. Heidi Ho, great. It's just a brilliant album. Just about everything rocks on this album. 8.5 out of 10. Number 3 on my list, we go to Jack's second solo album, Lazaretto. This was released in 2014. It's bluesy again. His solo stuff is full of bluesy rock, blues rock, hints of R&B, folk, country, and yet it still sounds alternative enough for him to maintain his credibility as an alt rock star. Three Women, the opening track, absolutely brilliant. This album I have here, I have the what they call the Ultra LP. This has a lot of stuff on here. On one side of the album, it plays at 45 RPM. The other side is 33 1/3. There's a track on here in one of the run out grooves that actually plays at 78 RPM. So it's actually an album that plays at all three record speeds. One of the labels on one side actually has a hidden track on it which you can play. Side A, I think, on the album, you actually start the needle at the middle at the run out groove, and it actually works its way back to the outside of the record, so it's been recorded the other way. There's two grooves at the beginning of one of the sides on here, so you can get two alternate versions or opening starts to one of the tracks before they merge into one groove. So there's a lot of gimmickry on here. There's a hologram effect on one side as well. So yeah, it was a lot of gimmickry on this album, but it's still a very, very good album. Jack White, Lazaretto, 8.5 out of 10. At number 2 on my list we go, this might surprise some people anyway. Most people would have this at number 1, I'm sure. The White Stripes, their 4th album, Elephant. This was released in 2003. Opens up with the incredible Seven Nation Army, which really is their signature tune. It says it all. The whole album is as great as that. You know, the hardest button to buttons on this album. So you get the vibe of the whole album. There's a couple of covers on here. I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself, which is David and Bacharach song. There's another one as well. I can't think what it is. But yeah, absolutely incredible. One of the great alt rock albums of all time, let alone the 2000s, just of all time. Absolutely brilliant. 9.5 out of 10. Great stuff. Number 1 on my list, fans of Jack White will know what it is. This is his most recent album. This was released in 2022. It's his second album for the year. Fear of the Dawn, the one I've just mentioned a couple of albums back, was also released in that year. That was that 70s rock sounding album. This one's Entering Heaven Alive. This is his 5th and latest. It's mainly a folk and country-esque album. It's just absolutely incredibly melodic and beautiful, which is not really 2 words you would use with Jack White. Melodic and beautiful tunes, because he's so quirky and out there and in your face. This is just a straightforward, mainly acoustic album. It's the only album really of his, apart from Elephant, which I do not have to be in the mood to listen to. I can just pick it up any time and just listen to it. Most of his other albums I really do have to be in the mood to listen to him. Absolutely incredible photo on the cover as well. It was actually taken, I think it was pre-World War II at a loom, a spinning factory in Russia, I believe. And that's the girl weaving with the looms and all the strings of cotton or whatever. It's just an incredible photo. It's just a brilliant photo. It has nothing to do with the album. It's just a fantastic photo. This album ranks at number 1 for me simply because it's so melodic. It's so laid back. It's just straightforward, easy listening songs with no problems. 9.5 out of 10 again. Anyway, guys, sorry for this long video. I tried to cut it as short as I could, but sometimes, you know, some videos are just really, really long when you don't intend them to be, and when you've got 17 albums to cover, sorry. But anyway, guys, if you stayed awake and watched the whole video, great. If you only skipped through it, that's great too. I don't mind. Anyway, thanks for watching. Leave your comments in the section below. What do you think of Jack White, White Stripes, etc, etc. Anyway guys, again, thanks for watching. Stay safe, take care. All for now. Catch you around, and bye folks.